Hey guys, it's Emily and I'm back with another speed build. Today's speed build is much overdue, but it is the creation I had for the very first Spark Challenge, the Destination Wedding. I was thinking of Niagara Falls as the inspiration, kind of a national park where a lot of people could gather and, do sightseeing and things like that. So I knew I wanted to have a lot of different platforms, different levels, and so I'm just here using the debug rocks that we got with Island Living to kind of create these different platforms with the intention of eventually connecting them through stairs. And so right now I'm just trying to get the basic shape at different levels. I knew I wanted to have different areas for different activities, so there would be an area for the dining or to have the reception at. Then there would also be a certain area for the wedding arch, and kind of, each little area had their own little station. But right here, I was just trying to figure out if we can actually get the Sims to move through all of those rocks correctly, and if I placed those levels by floating them, would they still function correctly? And of course, as you see here, we were able to do that successfully, so I was able to go ahead with my plan. So you'll see a lot of this video. I did cut out quite a bit, but a lot of it is just me trying to figure out how we're going to make this work. It was kind of, I was kind of trying to push myself to go outside of something that was usually comfortable as a building style. And so I'm trying a lot of different techniques, and in doing so it took time, and so you'll see me fiddling around with a lot of different things trying to get them to work correctly. In the end, I'm really pleased with the way it came out. It's not as aesthetically pleasing as I kind of envisioned. The right elements are there, but when it's all said and done, it's kind of hard to photograph in a way that is really attractive, at least in my opinion. But I felt as like an actual national park, you have a lot of the activities that you need and the sights that you would want to see. So if I were a sim, I can look around and see a lot of beautiful places. But me looking at this lot from my perspective as a builder, I personally didn't feel it was super attractive. But again, viewing it from the Sims point of view, I think it's just a gorgeous place to visit. So definitely awesome for a wedding destination for my Sims. So I was proud of that, at least. And of course, this is out some weeks after the winners have been chosen, and unfortunately I was not a winner, but I had fun doing it nonetheless. And like I said, I was really able to push myself and challenge myself to step outside of my comfort zone. So that in itself is a good thing. Trying to work with these waterfalls was really tricky. Anytime you place something or slide something, the waterfalls are affected. And I think it's because, as you can see here, they have such a large footprint like that. And so it was a lot of finicky work. I included quite a bit of that so you can see just how I had to putz with it. Like this build was a true labor of love. Just trying to get everything to work correctly. And so again, I knew I wanted to have a couple different sort of like plateau areas for the Sims to be doing things. And one would be the dining area where we can set up and have like where we would eat and have our party, and the wedding cake, and kind of where you would go and get drinks. And so there's one large area that ends up being for that. And then I knew I wanted to have a gift table because, if you always bring gifts or cards to a wedding, so we wanted to include that. I wanted to have an area for doing any sort of dancing or radio, just, again, part of a traditional wedding. And then the wedding arch area. And then we end up having another little area that has the photography area, because I think, a lot of weddings, they have certain areas for the photographer to be taking pictures of the wedding and the wedding party and things like that. So that I felt like was an important element as well. With these waterfalls, I knew I wanted to have pools, basically looking like these waterfalls were overflowing into pools, and trying to get that to function correctly was really tricky. Again, with those rocks in place, anytime you slide anything, a rock or the waterfall, everything would move. And so it was really just trying to get the look that I wanted, and then how to arrange that so that everything wasn't sliding all over. So it was definitely tricky to do that. And of course, I'm working on several different levels. That was another tricky thing that I did. Because of the way I built it, I built a room, and then I placed a room on top of it, and then I deleted the lower room. And then you can slide the topmost room up and down to any height that you want, which is critical for this type of build. You can't really do it any other way, and so that works for the levels that the Sims are going to work on. But then when you start adding pools into the mix, and they are conflicting with the levels that I had placed for the Sims to walk on, it all became quite a lot of finicky work. And so you'll see here I'm trying to drag something over so that it doesn't interfere with one level, but then if I slide it over, it will move the rocks up or down or left or right. And so, it was really just trying to, it was kind of like a puzzle is what it was. And so I really enjoyed that, but it doesn't really translate on camera real well for something really interesting to watch. So I apologize for that. But, I thought it was important to include so you could see how finicky. Sometimes my builds are really finicky. I will sit there and putz with it to get it just right. And, a lot of times that is cut out of the videos. And so you don't see that type of the struggle that I go through. So if you're struggling as well, please know you are not the only one. Even though I consider myself a fairly advanced builder, I still have issues and I still struggle. And, I think part of that is too, just trying to go outside the comfort zone, at least for me, trying to challenge myself and kind of stretch my creativity and stretch the skills, and always testing the limits of the program. That's also part of it, is trying to figure out what the program will allow and what it won't. And thankfully we have tons of awesome builders who create tutorials on how to do that. So if you ever have any questions, I just recommend checking out YouTube. There's so many awesome tutorials out there. I'm still here trying to work with creating the pools and the waterfalls. And again, I wanted to have that topmost one where Sims can kind of access, and theoretically they could swim. But I was kind of thinking, we have some floating candles, and I think I put rose petals in that one. Yep, I did there. Just for a little more romantic feel up at the top where the Sims could actually access. And here you'll see me, I knew I wanted to create a bridge. Here again, we're trying to slide things over and everything wants to shift all at once. And so that's not really a good thing. So I ended up, just duplicating the rooms to kind of make it bigger. And oh, this was a tricky build with all those sliding things. But anyway, here I wanted to make a bridge. I kind of envisioned the tides, coming and going. And so currently right now the tide is down and the bridge isn't in the water, but when the tide comes up, that would be underwater. So that was kind of my thinking. I do have this at, as you can see, just a couple of different levels. I didn't want just a flat old bridge. I want it to be a little more dynamic and interesting. And so I raised up, using that method that you saw earlier, I raised up that middle level a little bit higher than the two outside levels. So you enter on the stairs to get up to all of these on the right here, and then you would cross over that bridge to get up to the upper levels. So it's not really very accessible. There's a lot of stair climbing that needs to happen to go around this national park. But I thought it was a really great look, and it really reminded me completely of Niagara Falls. That was absolutely my inspiration for that. I was originally thinking of having this light wood on the bridge just to kind of make it pop out, but In the end, I thought it was too much of a stark contrast with all the other fencing that we end up putting in. You know, I think I changed up the fencing from the one that's there, and you know, in the end, I think it really kind of gels together. And that's another part of building for me, is I don't always have a clear vision, and so I try out a lot of different things and end up having to cut a lot of that out of my speed builds, just because I literally try 15 different things before I decide that on the one that I like. So here I'm adding a little vegetation. It's just raising it up from whatever level it is and trying to get it in the nooks and crannies to make it feel like it's really been there a while and really overgrown, and kind of tie everything together with the surrounding landscaping. So I used, you know, a lot of the island living plants just to kind of keep it, you know, you wouldn't find pine trees in Sulani, so try to keep it with the vibe of the surrounding area. And that's something I always try to be mindful of when I'm building, trying to make things, at least like the rock croppings and any foliage that I use, be similar to the surroundings. Of course, there are times where you would want to have a contrast of that, if you know, if that's the story you're telling. But for me, that's usually the cue that I take, is from the surrounding area. So we're using a lot of palm trees and a lot of that low-lying greenery, and some pops of red, because if you look around the whole the area of Sulani, that there's all these bright pops of red and some purples and things. So, you know, again, just really taking my inspiration and trying to make it feel like it fits into the area. So that was really important to me. And that's, you know, kind of right off of the bat why I chose those dark rocks. Here I was thinking I would just have a small little covered area, but then I decided that for the dining area, they might have a bit of a larger covered area, just because if they know that you're going to be using this venue for, you know, weddings or gatherings of some sort, if you're renting it out, then they would have a space where you could host quite a few people. And so that's why I ended up making it a little bigger, and the area here was perfect for it that I had created. So we have all our dining here. We end up having, you know, in my case, I had two brides, their table with, you know, kind of at the head table. And then off to the left, we end up having the buffet. And we have a cake table. We have that chocolate fountain, because who doesn't love a good chocolate fountain? And then we have a bar area too, off to the right. So I really love the way that turned out. I used, you know, some place settings and just real fun party look. Here we have our gift table for the guests, where they can, as they come in, they can drop their gifts and cards. A little card basket there. You know, I just thought that was really cute and really fit the vibe of, you know, if you're going to have a wedding venue, you're going to want to have a place to drop all your gifts or cards. Up above is where we have the actual ceremony area. This was really tricky to build because of the rocks. I couldn't place things quite correctly. It was acting really strangely, and so I had to really shift the camera a lot to get things to place where I wanted it to. So this little area that I'm building is actually where we have our dance floor and our DJ booth. So Sims can actually have a little dance area there. And then in the center, we have, of course, the area that everyone gets married. We have our wedding arch. We have that grand view overlooking the ocean there. And here I'm just placing the roof. I wanted to have, again, a covered area, and using that technique to slide the room up and down to get the roof exactly at the height that I wanted. So that's a little trick that you can use. I tried initially there to create a room, and just because of the layout, it was not letting me do that. And so we kind of had to come up with a different plan. So yeah, I cut out a lot of this here just for the sake of the video not being, you know, an hour long, but you can get the basic gist of how I did that here. And so I'm rearranging the posts, and we end up putting those lights in a different orientation, so they're not sticking out, but as you saw probably in the opening shot, you could see in the end here. But so that is my build for the very first Spark Challenge. Thank you guys for watching, stopping by and watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. See you next time.